So the last couple issues we have here in Internet Explorer 7, our thumbnails don't have that little white notch that we're seeing inside of Photoshop or inside of other browsers. The other issue that we want to address is the problem down here. If we take a look at the blog, we're not seeing that content inside of Internet Explorer. Now, we can't render those icons using Internet Explorer 7, but we can at least get the text to appear there, and that's what we're going to do. So let's come back to our editors, and inside of the style-ie7.css file, we need to create a couple more selectors. In order for those boxes to have those white notches, what we need to do is essentially clear out the bottom padding property associated with the paragraph, and then we want to essentially move the image in a negative fashion using the top property. So let's go ahead and take a look at how we can do that. We're going to go ahead and type in albums, and that's all we're going to type in here, so it's pretty specific in terms of that album's ID selector. And what we want to do is set the padding top property to 20 pixels. After doing that, what we want to do is take out the padding for the thumbnail container. So again, we're going to target the album's ID selector, but we want to target the LI element, and in there is the paragraph element that has the thumbnails class applied to it. And like I said, our goal here is just to override any bottom padding values, and we can do that by setting it to 0. And then finally what we want to do is target the image element itself and change its position. Like I said, we need to move that in a negative fashion. So I'm going to go ahead and type in IMG here, and after that we can set the top property to negative 20 pixels. And that should resolve that problem, but before we save this and refresh it, the other thing that we need to do is we need to make sure that that span.ico class has the display property set to none, which will disable the icons but at least render the text for us. So let's go ahead and write that selector since we're here. That's going to be blog div.article p.post-data a span.ico. Hopefully you remember that path that we wrote a little while ago, but that's getting to those icons specifically, and we just want the display property to be set to none, and that should at least render the text for us. So go ahead and save the style sheet file, then you can come back to Internet Explorer and refresh it. When you refresh it, you'll notice we're not seeing those notches yet, so I'll take a look at what we did wrong there, but we do have the text here without the icons. So let's just come back to Dreamweaver or the HTML editors, and let's just double check what we wrote here in terms of our code for the albums. And I see the problem. I was targeting thumbnails, and it should be thumbnail. So I'll go ahead and update that, and then I'll save it. And then we can come back to Internet Explorer and refresh one more time. And then when we scroll up, we should see those notches. So at this point, we have it working properly in Internet Explorer 7, Internet Explorer 8, Internet Explorer 9, and all the other major web browsers, Chrome, Safari, Opera, and Firefox. And again, most of this code that we wrote was in that IE7 specific CSS file, so you should be safe in any other web browser. If I go ahead and refresh what we're looking at here in Google Chrome, the layout still looks the way that we want it to look. And again, if you compare this to what we were working with inside of Photoshop, you'll notice that it's essentially identical. So we successfully were able to take this layout and design inside of Photoshop and code it so it appears properly in all major web browsers using the latest layout techniques of HTML and CSS. And we're also able to use some CSS3 experimental properties to create an extremely lightweight page by using a sprite sheet for icons and having CSS generate text shadows, gradients, and borders for us. So we're all set. We're all done with the conversion of this PSD file to HTML.